This is a CE5 session that took place on a mountain ridge off of Hawksview Road in Buckingham, Virginia on December 24th, 2018 from approximately 7 o'clock p.m. till 9:30 p.m. Okay, so here's the usual technical info for this session, just in case you're interested. The most important part of this is the first two bullets and the last bullet. The first bullet, our setup was followed by playing of crop circle tones in a short field meditation. Both of these resources are available through Dr. Stephen Greer's website at www.seriousdisclosure.com/apps, and they are very helpful to use during a CE5 session, not only because they increase your chances of contact, but because they also provide something of continuity, not only between sessions for an individual or a group, but across the groups that are spread out all over the globe. So it helps us all to an extent to consolidate our efforts and streamline them and coordinate them. So we might be doing things differently, but there's some elements that are the same. The second bullet should be noted that, as has become the norm for me, the majority of the day prior to a session, I usually concentrate on the fact that we're going to be performing a session in the evening, just in case anybody is listening. And this actually seems to really increase our chances of making contact and having some activity. It seems to be that energetic effort that I do in conjunction with meditation really seems to increase our number and our intensity of contact, which is wonderful. The last bullet, I want to point out that there were 3 of us present for this particular session, and one of us is a fellow named Zach, and he is a fire and light artist, and so because of his artistic abilities, we asked him to bring along a set of what are called poi. And if you've never seen them, it's a little globe on the end of a rope, and they will emit certain colors and patterns of light depending on which way you push the button. And these are spun in the air to make additional patterns as the spinning takes place. And so we felt like that because this was an artistic thing, and it was very pretty, and it was capable of emitting the same types of colors that we usually see, which are a lot of whites, reds, and greens, that, well, we might try it and see if maybe we got a response to it. And what's amazing is that it seemed to work, and I'll show you what I mean by that in some of these videos. So if you want to read the rest of this, be my guest, you might want to hit the pause button. We're going to be featuring 4 video clips that were pulled from the overall about 3 hours of recording that we did. The first clip is not really exciting, but it is very important, and you'll see why. And the last 3 clips actually show some really good evidence, with the 4th clip, the last one in the series, being the one that excuse me, is just really amazing. So let's get started with those. Okay, so if you'll bear with me for just a moment, I want to start the series of clips with a clip that really doesn't show anything extraordinary at all, but it is important just the same, and here's why. In the few clips that are going to follow, you're going to see a lot of things moving through the air. It's a lot of activity. And when you have that kind of activity, it's important to try to do everything that you can to rule out the possibility that the camera is catching dust particles that are really close to the lens and being blown around by the wind. And what that results in is it looks like that there's something that's very large in the camera frame that's flying around. And so it does happen, and it can mimic what are true energy signatures moving through the air. And so when we get that, we need to try to mitigate that doubt. So what I did was, we had 4 cameras set up around the Jeep. I actually have brackets on the Jeep that are specifically made so that I can attach my cameras to them. And so there's one on each corner. And All of the clips that I'm going to show you were taken from the camera on the front corner, the front driver's corner of the Jeep, except for this one. This one was taken at the back driver's corner, and in it you're going to see Zach standing there smoking a cigarette. And in all reality, it probably wasn't a cigarette, if you get my drift, knowing Zach. However, it was dark and I couldn't see what he was doing, so I'm going to assume it was a cigarette. And so what you're going to see, you need to look at how the smoke behaves. So when he exhales, if we had a lot of wind, that smoke would be like dramatically dissipating, moving around, and going off screen really quickly. And what you're going to see is that smoke kind of hangs around there for a second, and then it just slowly moves away. And so, to the best of my ability, this is reasonable proof that shows that there was very little wind while we were up there for this session. And it's important to try to validate our other findings by using pieces of evidence like this. The other thing that I can tell you is my personal experience is from being there, is that there wasn't any wind to speak of. Every once in a while you'd feel a little bit of a breeze come across, but nothing dramatic. However, it's a whole lot easier to believe that if you weren't there, if you can see it on film, than if I'm just telling you. So let's look at that real quick, and then we'll move on to the actual footage that shows some real interesting things. Here's clip number 2, which is the real deal. This is where we start seeing some evidence of some interesting things going on. We had completed our series of crop circle tones and our field meditation, and we had done this outside. And keep in mind, this is on December 24th in Central Virginia, and we were cold. It was about 30 degrees, and we were chilly, even though we were bundled up in bibs and stuff. And for those of you wondering, yes, that was Christmas Eve, and we were out there doing this because there's nothing we'd rather do when we have some free time. So anyway, we were cold, and we'd finished our initial preparatory stuff, and we decided we were going to get into the Jeep for a few minutes to warm up. So at the end of the video, right at the very end of it, you'll hear me start the Jeep. What you're going to see is there's lots of activity in the air. There's energy signatures that seem to be excited, for lack of a better word. They're zipping all over the place, excuse me. And I'm going to play this at full speed. It's about 15 seconds. I'm not going to do a slow-mo analysis of this one because the objects that are of interest are very readily apparent without doing that. So I'm just going to play it for you, and then we're going to move on to the next clip. This is our third clip, and this is, you're going to see Zach spinning his poi. I went ahead and added some commentary as the clip was playing in order to avoid having to put another clip in that had some slow motion stuff in it, so I hope it doesn't get too confusing. And so most of the explanation is already on the clip itself, so let's go look at it. Okay, so here's clip number 3, and as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, Zach is he's a light and fire artist, and so he spins and works with fire, and he also spins lighted LED poi. And what he has here, what you can see as this is paused, he's got his poi, and unfortunately I can't afford cameras that record in color in the dark at this point. I wish I could. If anybody'd like to donate, that would be fantastic. So unfortunately, the game cams that I can afford at this point only record in black and white. If you were there in person, you would see that these right here are gorgeous streaks of color, and they change color, and they're blue and red and green and yellow and purple and pink and all different types of color. And as I start the video, you're going to see him spinning those, and then you're going to see some activity begin to take place out in here. Much the same as in the last video, it almost has a sense of excitement about it, the way that it's moving. So here we go with that, and I may pause it and back it up and look at a couple things as we move through this. So here we go. And you can see they're starting to come in there. The video's almost over at this point. So I'm going to play it one more time, and then I'm going to pause it. Pause it right in here, and I'm going to back that up a little bit and look at some of these streaks of energy that are in here, just so that we can see them a little better. And I am going backwards. And what's interesting is that obviously here are Zach's streaks of light, and we've got these other streaks that really come close to matching what he's got. And that's important because in another video, another clip that we're going to be talking about, there is something in the sky that virtually mimics this type of, I don't even know what you'd call that, streak, I guess. It's almost like it was almost like something was duplicating or mimicking what he was doing. And we were doing this deliberately as a part of our communication. We thought we would try this because these lights are very beautiful, and they shine for quite a distance. And we thought, well, why not? It's something pretty, it's artistic, it's creative, and that really, honestly, it takes you into the higher consciousness when you get into that kind of thing. And that's where we want to go. So we thought it was a good idea, and actually it seems like maybe it turned out to be, because we did get a lot of activity that was seemed to be responsive to what he's doing. And again, pay attention to the format that this takes, because I think it's the next clip, might be the one after, what we're going to be looking at, it literally mimics that. It's real interesting. So I'm going to let that play the rest of the way out one more time, and then we're going to move on. This is clip number 4, and it's the last of the clips on this particular video. I'm going to let it run full speed for full length the first time, and I'm not going to get involved. I'm just going to let it run, no commentary or anything. And you need to watch the sky on this one. And then when you see what goes across the sky, focus your attention towards the bottom near the ground, and you'll see that there's something else that that comes across there as well. And then after we watch it the first time, we'll slow it down and talk about it a little bit. Alright, so I've got this paused at the beginning. I'm going to let it run about halfway through, that's the point at which most of the activity is over and done with. And then I'm going to pause it and back it up, and we're going to talk about it. So here we go. Okay, so I feel pretty confident that you probably saw that. I'm going to roll it back frame by frame here until we get there. So this is just before that big streak comes across the sky. And I'd like to point out at this time during the video that you notice that Zach is no longer down here in the corner spinning his poi. And that's an important thing to note, because in the previous video I did point out that I was going to show you something that appeared to mimic the streaks of light that are emanating from his poi as he's using them. And in fact, I also pointed out that some of the energy that was moving through the air in that last video also seemed to almost be mimicking those. And I want to point out at this point that this right here pretty much proves that what's in the air, what you're seeing on these videos, are not reflections of that poi. And that's one reason I like this video so much, because yeah, you could kind of construe that, you know, maybe with all that light that's coming off of those poi, that it's reflecting off of dust particles in the atmosphere or whatever, and the camera's picking it up as a separate signature. However, this video right here completely discredits that theory, because he's no longer spinning. The poi are turned off, and he had just finished. It hadn't been but a few minutes, and he had put everything down, and we were in fact just kind of hanging out for a few minutes, and we were going to pack up and go home. So I'm going to move it forward a little bit until you see, there it is. So back it up, and that's what it looks like. And you notice it's got the most intense of the energy is on the outer bands, with less in the center. And we're going to look at, I'm going to show you Zach's energy band from the poi again, or light band rather, from the poi again, so that you can see the similarity there. The other thing that's really interesting about this is that this is not just like a flash and gone, although it appears to be. If we slow it down and move it forward a little bit, it's only there for a split second and then it disappears. But do you see this? There is residual energy hanging in the air right there. And in the next frame, it's still there to an extent, and then it disappears. So we move it forward a little bit more, and remember I was talking about something along the ground, then this comes in and streaks across there. And again, keep in mind, we looked at that video where there was smoke in the air. There's not any wind. There's nothing that would have caused a streak of dust to move this quickly in front of the camera. And you can also see that there are some bushes and stuff out in here. And it's really kind of, it's hard to say for certain, but it looks to me like this is actually going behind these bushes. You can see that there's a little break right there where these bushes are coming up. I'm thinking that maybe it's a bush that's interrupting your line of sight to where this is moving. But it moves across there really quick, and then it's gone again. So the reason I got so excited about this video, this particular clip, is because this really seems to be something that is a direct response to our communicative efforts for the evening. And that streak that goes across the sky to begin with so closely mimics Zach's poi, the light from his poi, that it really makes me feel like that it was kind of a nod in our direction that said, yeah, we see you, and here we're going to communicate back with you by mirroring back to you what you were doing for us. And as always, keep in mind this is a CE5 session, so this is deliberate. This is not accidental. This is on purpose. We were putting it out there, inviting these beings to come in and communicate with us, and they responded. And also keep in mind, I know I say it a lot, but anybody can do this. And by doing it, it raises our consciousness to attempt to communicate with these beings and to see what they have to say eventually, hopefully. It puts us in a better place. And when we're in a better place, we're better for each other, and we're better for our planet, and ultimately we'll be better for our universe. So that's our last clip for this session. I really appreciate your watching. If you enjoyed the content, please subscribe. I will be uploading more as I have it. It takes me a while to get these done because I'm not real tech savvy, but I'm doing the best that I can. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I chose these clips from the dozen or so that we gathered during this particular session because they represented typical events which normally occur during our CE5 sessions. All of these clips basically show the same thing, the energetic signature or form of intelligent beings who were generous enough to make the effort to manifest and attempt to communicate simply because we requested it. If you're not familiar with what a CE5 session is, the abbreviation stands for Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. This is the only type of extraterrestrial contact which is deliberately initiated by human beings for the purpose of building relationships with non-terrestrial beings for the purpose of communication, the acquisition of knowledge, and the betterment of our planet and our society. The ultimate goal of these efforts is the eradication of the current status quo of hatred, fear, and separation which has been in place for far too long. Our current state of existence is not sustainable. We are destroying our planet and ourselves. There is a better way. We can learn from those who have been where we are and managed to evolve past it, if we're only willing to make the effort to do so. We are some of the ones who are willing to do so without question. You can do this too. Anyone can. All it takes is willingness to push back against the status quo with fearlessness and to not be afraid of the unknown. We Own the Light is dedicated to the enrichment and evolution of humanity's spirituality, and we're in direct opposition to the fear-mongering and secrecy that fosters society's current state of hatred and separation. We work toward this through showing others the energetic connectivity between all things, including those which have been traditionally feared or thought of as being dangerous, especially extraterrestrial beings. I once heard Dr. Stephen Greer say, "They might own the night, but we own the light." And for those of us willing to do whatever it takes to be a cog in the wheel that crushes the current societal and political state to smithereens, no truer statement has ever been uttered. This channel, our website, and all of our efforts, past, present, and future, are dedicated to this cause, and we are indebted to Dr. Greer for his tireless pursuit of the same. As St. Francis of Assisi was quoted to say, "All of the darkness in the world cannot extinguish the light from a single candle," and he was so right. We have no fear of the darkness because we own the light. Do you have the courage to own your light? We think you do.